Greetings. It is day 130 of Personal Family Lockdown and day 124 of Shelter in Place for the county. Today is also, was also, the due date for my baby. However, she came unexpectedly early. I won't go into all the details, but will mention some of the pandemic-related challenges of labor and delivery during this very interesting time. So 11 p.m. found me on the phone with an on-call doctor asking about some complications that I was experiencing. The on-call doctor thought it best for me to go to the hospital, get a monitor on baby, and just check to make sure everything was fine. It was not clear whether I was going to get sent home after that or admitted. Under, shall we say, better circumstances, we would have had family visiting, and it would have been sort of no big deal. We would have knocked on their door and said, "Hey, we're heading out. You've got the kids." As it was, our other two children were asleep. And because we weren't sure if I was just going to be coming back, there was a whole discussion of how do we do this, taking care of the kids that we have and the kid that we're about to have. I was feeling pretty good, so I ended up driving myself to the hospital. In hindsight, that might not have been the best plan. I experienced about 5 contractions on my drive over, arrived at the hospital around midnight. The security guard that was there at the entrance didn't really even ask me any questions. Apparently, a very pregnant woman arriving at the hospital at midnight, you just direct them straight over to labor and delivery. The on-call doctor had warned the staff that I was coming, so they were all ready for me. Got the monitor on, and most thankfully, baby was doing great. However, there was still this question of whether labor was going to proceed at this point or if the contractions were going to subside. So it's a lot of monitoring, texting my husband updates. I arrived at the hospital, I've got a contraction starting, him sort of long distance timing, length of time between contractions. And eventually the nurse and I sort of came to the same conclusion that it's probably worth, checking to see how things were progressing. She did a quick exam and then said, "I'm admitting you. Tell your husband to call the babysitter and get himself to the hospital." At this point, however, we had a slight difficulty. Our planned childcare was unreachable. We texted and called multiple times, could not get a hold of her. So we were in a little bit of a fix at that point. I'm trying to figure out what was our plan B. I did not think that we could wait until the morning when we sort of had easier to get established childcare. So one of our friends had said, if there's anything we can do, let us know. This apparently popped into my head, and we called them up. We were in a bit of a fix. And amazingly, even though it was about 2 a.m, they had not gone to sleep and were willing to help us out. So a friend came over to stay with the kids and then freed up my husband to come join me at the hospital. It was such a relief when I got the text that we had childcare. In the meantime, I was, again, long distance giving my husband instructions as to what he should pack for the hospital visit for me and also for baby. At that point, I also got a COVID-19 test done with the nose swab, which, although not comfortable, wasn't as horrendous as I had feared. And they were able to finish the test right before contraction started, which was very good timing. The hospital used rapid testing, so they knew within a few hours that I tested negative for COVID-19. Not terribly surprising, but it was very nice that I did not have to wear a mask for the rest of my hospital stay. At that point, I texted some of my family, said, "Hey, surprise, surprise, I'm at the hospital." Most of the family being on the East Coast. I was surprised, given the time, that I received a text back, even though it's 3 hours later. And my sister, who was getting up early for work, saw the text and realizing that I was waiting for my husband, offered to call me. So she spoke with me on the phone and talked me through several contractions. So sort of the the long distance labor support, labor coaching. Then presumably she went off to work, and my husband did arrive, thankfully, in time for the birth, although much closer than I think either one of us would have preferred. Baby is doing wonderfully. I am recovering. So thankful that everything turned out okay for us. Another sort of difference is normally we would have our kids come visit us in the hospital the next day, but that was not an option. So we did a video conference with them to sort of break the news to them, and then did the official introduction when we actually came home from the hospital. The nurses were great, and they sent us home with wristbands, one that said I'm a big brother and one that said I'm a big sister. And so when we were all reunited, we all got to have matching, well, semi-matching hospital wristbands and try and really make them feel like a part of it. So, you know, somewhat challenging, certainly not at all what we had planned, but we do what we must, especially during these times, and very thankful for the support of friends and family, both near and far, in getting us through that. It was also the very first all-nighter of my life, and I would say for a very worthwhile cause.